right, I want to go back now to a story that we have covered a lot, though it isn't getting quite the coverage it was. More and more we're banging on about Gaza, aren't we, and the conflict in Gaza, and our gaze, our fascination for what's happening in Ukraine and the Russian invasion and the Ukrainian resistance to the Russian invasion of their country has become less of a news story. We did have Mark Mitchell, who we spoke to yesterday, who attended the Ukrainian Peace Summit in Switzerland, which doesn't appear to have brought an awful lot of peace. But back here, friends and supporters of Ukraine as a country and people who live there continue to do their bit to help their friends. And leading one of those efforts is Kate Turska. She is the spokesperson for Mahi for Ukraine. She joins us now. Kate, nice to talk again. How are you?
Good morning, Sean. I'm well.
All right. Hey, look, we talked to Mark Mitchell yesterday, but it doesn't really seem like much came out of that peace summit, did it?
Well, I guess I wouldn't judge the success of the summit by whether or not Russians sent us an email this afternoon and said, we surrender. Instead, the summit was a good show of global solidarity, and it tops off several weeks of Ukrainian diplomatic success. On the back of the third recovery conference since the start of the full-scale invasion, the G-Summit, which resulted in signing 2 new security agreements with the U.S. and Japan, decision to loan Ukraine $50 billion, allowing Ukraine to strike inside Russia, and a fresh round of sanctions. But also, the summit itself, no other proposals were discussed at the summit besides Ukraine's 10-point peace plan. And a joint communique that was published stated Ukraine's territorial integrity has to form the basis of any peace summit. So all in all, I guess the communique called Russia's war, and it reflects Ukraine's position.
Yeah.
So it has reaffirmed Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty, and it did call for safe operation of Russian-occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant under Ukrainian control, the food security, the return of all prisoners of war, including the return of kidnapped children. And it is a path towards achieving peace. Yes, more work needs to be done, but I believe that it's showed a broad and deep support for a just peace, which is important and a win in itself.
And Kate, it would be fair to say, and I read news reports every day, that there seems to be a slight but perceptible move from Putin towards considering the possibility of a negotiated ceasefire or peace that doesn't require him to achieve victory.
Let's be clear. Russia's not talking about peace. What they want is surrender. We are dealing not with a peacemaker, but with a deceitful war criminal. And a spark for an obvious fact that Putin is a non-liar who never keeps his word. His, I guess, preconditions for peace or for negotiations were complete nonsense. Why would Ukraine withdraw from its own territory and give Russia more? That makes no logical sense. His demand to give him the city of Kherson, for example, is the first case in history of mankind where an invader demands to give him the territory from which his own army fled in disgrace. If Russia really wanted to end the war, Putin should just withdraw his troops from Ukraine's territory. That would mean peace. Because people talk about peace, but peace is not merely the absence of conflict. It's the presence of justice. Yeah. And peace on Russia terms means mass atrocities, repressions, colonization, and anybody who thinks that territorial concession to violent invader can bring about peace are simply wrong.
All right. Now, I do note, when we talked to Mark Mitchell yesterday and to Judith Collins, we're sending people up to train Ukrainian troops in, mine clearing and ordnance clearing. But we're not going to send those spare LAVs we've got. Mark Mitchell said it was just not, or Judith Collins said, just not logistically sensible move. Is Ukraine and are you still happy with the level of support, moral and practical, that Ukraine is getting from New Zealand?
I mean, obviously, we do appreciate that New Zealand is doing everything it can. New Zealand is obviously the supporter of the UN Charter and democratic liberal values and should continue to display that support. And in reality, we should keep evaluating what we can meaningfully do and continue to stand alongside Ukraine until we succeed. In the end, 100 million, obviously, around financial support, including the training, including the funding of military equipment, humanitarian expansion, is all great, and we're definitely grateful for that. But there could be more that could be done, and I do believe that New Zealand should continue looking and evaluating and considering what else we can do.